Welcome back to the Making the Madness YouTube channel. We have some breaking news today as Jared Butler has decided to return to Baylor for his junior season. This is big news for the Bears. I think it makes them a preseason consensus top 3 team going into next season. Jared Butler's just the best player. He averaged 16 points per game, 3.1 assists, 1.6 steals per game. A season ago, he shot 38% from three, 42% from the floor, and was a first team All Big 12, third team All American. He was just an excellent player last season for the Bears, and he was probably the main reason why they were able to have so much success. They were able to, be a team that ended up being, or would have been a 1 seed going into the NCAA tournament, and would have been a really tough team to beat once in the NCAA tournament for last season. Obviously, him being back is going to, I think, make them a top 3 team. They return 4 or 5 starters. The one starter they lose is Freddie Gillespie, but looking at next season, if they can get Tristan Clark back and healthy, that might be an upgrade. If Tristan Clark can be healthy. Looking at Butler, though, more particularly as an NBA draft prospect, last year he was really solid. And I think that you can say that about Butler just as a general. He's a good defender. He's a good passer. He can play on. He can play off the ball. He's a good shooter. But he's not elite at anything. He's not. He's a good shooter. He's not like a, Trae Young, Buddy Hield level shooter. He's not going to go out and shoot, I think, like 40% and average 20 points per game, or at least he didn't do that last year. He's a good defender. He doesn't really get beat, but he's also not someone that's like a Davion Mitchell where he can kind of force turnovers and play havoc for the other team. He's just a really solid player. He's a good passer, not an elite passer, can run points, but I think is good off the ball as well. He's just really, really good. And one thing I think going into next year, for him to work on, I think, is just becoming elite at one skill. He's good at everything, but really, I think the skill he can easily work on and become a legitimate first round pick type prospect is becoming a better shooter. If he can go from being a shooter that can go out and shoot 38% to maybe being able to shoot 42% from the floor, become like an elite knockdown shooter, I think that's big for him. If he's able to go out and become more of a scorer as well, not everything's just about shooting. If he can become a really good scorer, if he can develop as a finisher around the basket a little bit better, I think that helps him going into next season. NBA draft, I think he's a really good player. I think he would have been picked in the second round this year, but easily if he can work on some of those things and help lead Baylor to potentially a national championship, because they are going to be a top 3 team preseason. They are going to have some really high expectations. If he can lead them to some success next season, more success. Obviously, there was no NCAA tournament, but if he can lead Baylor to a historically great season, lead them to a 1 seed, lead them to a Big 12 regular season championship, lead them to a Final Four national championship, he's going to find himself, I think, in the first round of next year's NBA draft if he can kind of improve and also do that. As for the rest of the roster, this is a really solid roster. Obviously, they return Maceo Teague earlier this week. We did a full breakdown on him earlier, but he's going to be important. He's that secondary player. When Butler's having an off game, it's usually Maceo Teague who steps up and has a big game. Davion Mitchell, I really like Davion Mitchell as a player. He's an elite defender. I think one of the best defenders in the sport. If he can go out and be, continue being an elite defender. He does get a little shot happy. He will rush some shots. Doesn't play necessarily the game in himself. He'll go out and force a bad shot here and there, and it kind of messes with the flow of the offense and kind of hurts the team. But if he can, I think, eliminate a little bit of that while being an elite defender and a really good point guard, I think he's going to be really big. Mark Vital does what he does. He's he forces havoc defensively. He can switch essentially 1 through 5. Can guard the point guard. He can guard the center. He guarded. Just thinking back, they played Butler. He guarded Kamar Baldwin late in the game. He also, against Kansas, guarded Udoka Azubuike. You can't think of two different players than that, and he's a really good defender. Can switch 1 through 5. He gets offensive rebounds. He's tough. He's fast. He's physical. He's just everything you could want in a player. And he's a perfect glue guy. Tristan Clark, 2 seasons ago, he was on pace to being, while Baylor was struggling in non-conference play, Tristan Clark was having himself a non-conference portion. Then he tore his ACL. He wasn't really healthy at all last year. He was healthy, I guess, for the Villanova game when he had, I think, 12 points in that game, but really wasn't healthy that season. And if he can get back being healthy, kind of the way he was pre-ACL tear, he's going to be really big. They bring in Adam Flager, LJ Cryer. Those two can kind of come off the bench, provide some scoring. Matthew Mayer has never found a shot he doesn't like. He can play the 4 and kind of step in and make some shots. He's kind of a different version of Mark Vital, about the exact opposite. Mark Vital doesn't really shoot. He gets offensive rebounds. He does all the little things. Matthew Mayer comes in. He's there just to shoot, and he kind of plays the 4. Flo Thamba, Danger, both those players, I guess, can play the center. We'll see how good Tristan Clark can be. That's going to be huge for Baylor. If Tristan Clark can be healthy, I think they legitimately, if you tell me Tristan Clark is going to be the way he was pre-ACL tear, Baylor's the best team in the country next season. Now, we don't know what we're going to get out of Clark. Can we get that play? Probably not, which is why I would probably just leave Baylor top 3. But if Clark can be healthy, that's going to be big. Flo Thamba, Danger, going back to them, they're solid players. They can come in, play defensively. I don't think either is going to necessarily stand out being an elite, center, but they can just kind of plug and play their roles. This is a Baylor team that's going to have high expectations. I think they are, going to be a preseason top 3 team. They're going to be the Big 12 favorites. Can Baylor make their run in the NCAA tournament? Can they make it to the Final Four? Can they win an NCAA championship? We'll wait and see, but certainly next season is looking optimistic for the Bears. Thanks again for tuning in to the Making the Madness YouTube channel. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. We're going to come out with daily content. NBA draft decisions are here, but we're not stopping there. We're going to start our preview content going into next season, so make sure to hit that subscribe button.